Right, we should be going. Everything working fine. Yes, it is. Yeah, just... Yeah, that is everything fine then. I just need to bring this stuff up. But we're back again for now the fourth one of the Primal breakdown. And we've got another movie to cover. It seems to be quite busy for films as of late. There's been a film, what we had now. I'm trying to think what the second. I don't know why I've already forgotten what the second one that I'd done was. I've just completely Shazam 2. That was it. That was fucking awful, absolutely awful, really, really bad, and it gets worse the more you actually think about that. How's it going, Biffa? Then what did we have? We had John Wick 4 last week. Pretty decent movie. Definitely a fun watch. And this week, we have the old Dungeons and Dragons. D&D, I don't know nothing about it. I don't know anything about it. There's the odd thing, but mainly it comes from, if you see it in they're playing it in Stranger Things. That's about as far as my knowledge of it goes. I think whenever I hear anything about Dungeons and Dragons now, it's always negative. They've kind of went the route that a lot of companies do and pretty much killed it, I guess, in a certain sense. So that's really my only knowledge of it. Just, little bits and pieces. And we finally have the film for it, Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. And going into this, I thought it was going to be absolutely terrible, mainly because the things we were hearing about it from the writers and all that about, we're emasculating our leading men. That'll sell tickets. I don't know what they were thinking about with that, but it seems like another. It's a very similar situation with the House of the Dragon. When that started, you had I think it was the director that came out. Oh, it's all an allegory for Roe v. Wade. Whatever stuff in America. And then you actually watch it, and it's like, oh, it's not actually that. I don't know what you were trying to do by saying that, other than telling people not to watch it. So it was a very similar situation with this. That, I mean, if you tell the audience, well, in this movie, we love emasculating our leading men. Again, that's not doing you any favors to actually get people to go to watch it. And then you do watch it, and it's like, oh, it isn't that. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. What did he actually get fired? Well, I'm gonna have to fucking look into that then. That's very interesting. And Ahsoka, fucking hell. Oh, April, you fucker. I was looking at that there. I'm like, what? The amount of people being fired at Disney at the moment, I wouldn't be shocked by that. Although, I think out of everybody there, I don't see them getting rid of Dave Filoni. And I mean, yeah, Ahsoka's done in it. That's out this year. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of what we've ended up with in this film. They've come out and said, we emasculate our leading men. You watch the film, oh, you haven't actually done that. There's only really certain moments where you're kind of like, so because I have that information that they've said, does that, it starts to knock about in the back of your mind, like, well, is that what they've done? Is that what they've done here? So you kind of have to just look at it in a way like, if I didn't have that information, how would it come across? But that only really happens with, I really think the only main emasculating part is like a little 2-minute segment of the film, and it has nothing to do with the lead. It has nothing to do with Chris Pine. They don't emasculate them, so I'm just baffled on why they thought that would be the best route to go, is say that, and then you see, it's like you should have just shut your mouth. So it's a very strange one. It makes no sense to me. What else could I really say about it other than it's not really in this film. It looks like that's definitely put people off going to see it. It doesn't look like it's doing too well at the box office at the moment. We'll have to see, kind of at the end of the weekend. See how it actually does. But I just think with those comments, it's like you've just put people off it. That's really all they've done by doing it. So it's, again, just a similar situation to the House of the Dragon. They say something, it comes across more like, oh, so you don't actually understand what you're talking about. Because because I did a video on the, when they came out and said we emasculate our leading men, and the stuff they were mentioning, that it didn't come across as emasculation. They said, we love emasculating our leading men. It's new and fresh, apparently. We haven't seen enough of that over the past few years. And then they go on to say, oh, it's like when because I think they done Spider-Man Homecoming. They then went on to said, so, what we're doing is we like to give our heroes challenges. And I'm just like, so how the fuck is that emasculation? But just off the headline of the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves writers say they love emasculating, a lot of people will not look past the headline. They'll just see that and go, fuck that, straight away. But you actually go into the article, and it seems like they don't know what the word emasculation means. But again, in this film, there's maybe a two-minute part of the movie that's like, maybe they're probably doing it there, but just in terms of actually Chris Pine, they don't do it at all. Even in the article they were like, Chris Pine was really up for being emasculated. It's like, well, it doesn't happen in the movie. It doesn't happen to him at all. So it's just one of those. I don't know why they do it. I don't know why these people just say nothing or don't even mention anything like that. Just say, oh, it's a really cool film. Chris Pine plays this, and that, and this happens, and it's a big that's all you have to do. But I don't know why they go down that route. They just, again, fucking. It really does show just how stupid people are, because they even went out of their way to say, oh yeah, we love emasculating our men, but we're not doing it for woke reasons. That's like literally what they said. So it's just, yeah. But what can you say? But yeah, talking about this movie anyway, going into it, I thought it's probably going to be fucking terrible. It's going to take ages to get through and get all the notes and everything like that. It comes across like they know nothing about emasculation just from how they described it. So it's a fucking weird. But yeah, this movie actually turned out to be pretty good. That's probably as far as there's issues in it. There is there's maybe one major issue, but you can kind of let one go. But if it's just filled to the brim with certain things, there's the odd contrivance. But overall, it's pretty well done. It's got a lot of heart, because I believe it's been compared to The Lord of the Rings. I have to disagree with that. It has been compared to Guardians of the Galaxy, and there's definitely similarities between the two. I mean, it's an adventure. Again, the Guardians of the Galaxy has, their group. It has a lot of heart. So that's sort of the similarities it has with Guardians of the Galaxy. Lord of the Rings, I mean, Dungeons and Dragons compared to Lord are completely fucking different things. I wouldn't even call, from what I know about Dungeons and Dragons, I wouldn't really call it that. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons, there's, I guess, a lot more to it. There's a lot more different things going on. There's a lot more different types of enemies and all that type of stuff. So there's probably a lot more. Definitely go in more of the sort of weirder stuff, rather than just there's some orcs, there's maybe a dragon, but it doesn't really go much further than that. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on this film. Is you've got an enjoyable, fun adventure movie with likable characters. Because that's the funny thing is they went into this saying, oh, it's all about we're emasculating the male lead, and it's actually about fatherhood. It's actually about being a good dad. Which is, it makes it even weirder that they said that when it just doesn't quite fit. So it's really surprising they done that, considering a lot of stuff doesn't really go down that route, at least in recent years. So that was more of a surprising part. It kind of took me about 5 minutes into the film. I'm like, oh, you're actually going to do something, because I thought it was just going to be a bunch of random shit. I thought it was going to be very similar to the most recent Marvel movies. And it turned out not to be that way. Even the humor is a lot better. There's a few jokes in there that you do chuckle at. That I think were really well done. There's one joke that's probably my favorite, but comes at the expense of a certain contrivance, I guess. But either way, it's just again, pretty good movie. It's not perfect. It's got its problems, but it's got a lot of heart there, and that's kind of the sort of thing you're looking for. Overall, the story is fine. I think the best way to describe this movie, it's kind of the type of movie you would chuck on like a Sunday afternoon. It's one of those movies. It's not a movie where I go, oh, this is a must see. It's one of those ones where it's like, it's worth a watch. That's kind of what I would say for this film. But it's certainly enjoyable, and there's no fucking emasculation. So don't know what all that was about. That was absolutely stupid. But that's what you just fucking expect out of some of these people. Just insane. So that's kind of my overall thoughts of the film. So I suppose we'll probably just dive into it anyway. Because it does start out where usually I would criticize something for sort of introducing their character this way, but I kind of get what they're doing. They're kind of doing it in the spirit of, I guess, a role playing game where you have your character that has its backstory. So that's kind of what they do. They introduce Chris Pine's character, Ed. And he sort of, so yeah, him and Holger, which is, why am I blanking on a name now? I really can't think. I still haven't seen Avatar 2, so yeah, it probably is. From what I've heard about Avatar 2, the story is non-existent. It's pretty much just it's nice visuals. So yeah, I imagine this is a lot better than what that is. But yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. So they start out with, it's kind of just exposition of the backstory of your main character, and the only reason I would kind of go, yeah, that's fine, is just based on that they're kind of doing it in the spirit of how you would play a role playing game where you would have a backstory for your character. So that's sort of the idea of why they're doing it. If it was in a different context, I would probably say it's a bit fucking lazy, isn't it? Just to have just the whole sort of backstory read out to you straight away. I suppose in this, it's definitely works more for the context that they're in. That they're in, they're imprisoned, and they're going before like judges. It's essentially a hearing to see if they can get out of this place early. So in that context, he's trying to give a whole song and dance. He's trying to stall for time for certain reasons. And I suppose he's trying to also get them to let them go. So it works a lot more in the context of this. And his whole backstory is, So he's like a member of the Harper's faction, a network of spies that oppose tyranny, defend the oppressed, and ask nothing in return. So, you know, they eavesdrop on mercenaries, stop bandits, and yeah, I think they bring like a famed red wizard to justice. There's going to be a lot of stuff in here that I imagine if you don't know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, it's just going to sound like just go over your head pretty much. There's just a lot of different things, different types of things in there. So yeah, that's that kind of, I guess that comes up a bit later to do with the red wizards. He's got like a wife and a baby. So yeah, it just kind of sets up what his whole story is. You know, he became a Harper. You know, he says you're bound to make enemies who go looking for revenge. So it turns out that I believe the Red Wizards got Feyens. I think they're Feyens, they're called. They got them to, you know, hunt down his wife for reasons which we don't get to about maybe about an hour and 20 minutes into the film. So it's probably not worth jumping to there yet. And yeah, so they killed his wife. I think his daughter I guess his wife put his daughter into a sort of cupboard so the you know, they wouldn't kill the baby as well. So that ended up, you know, his devotion to his oath died, you know, to do with the Harpers. And then he kind of like turned to drink, so it shows you like him in like a pub, you know, just pissed out of his skull. He's got his, you know, baby there, and then that's when he meets Holger. And the thing I really like about the, you know, sort of their dynamic with Holger and Ed is they definitely, you know, there's a lot of companionship there. They definitely lean on each other. So that I quite like. You know, I imagine a lot of us thought, oh, she's just going to be great, but they actually have them kind of equals. You know, they have him say Holger was a fellow resident of Rock Bottom, so that's kind of what brought them together. She took pity on the baby. Yeah, because she was cast out of her tribe for falling in love with an outsider, which I guess in their tribe that's a sort of no-no. So that's kind of what brings them together, that they're both kind of just at rock bottom. And then yeah, it goes into like they turn to steal him. His daughter, which is, I don't think her name's Kira. She has like a pendant that makes her invisible, so that kind of comes up later on. And they just go over the type of team they had. They had Simon, a sorcerer, and a con man forge. They had certain standards where they wouldn't go out and hurt people. They would only steal from those that would feel at the least. And then it all changed when they met the wizard Sophina. She wanted help robbing like a Harper's Strongkeep, which Ed would be able to get in there because he was a Harper. And it's like relics seized by evildoers, and then that's when he finds out about the Tablet of Reawakening, which is something that it's able to bring back one dead person. So, you know, whether it's someone you know, I guess, or someone, I think it can just be anyone that you can bring back from the dead. So that's kind of the reason why he goes along with Sophina's plan to go and steal this thing as well. So he like left because yeah, they took like Kira out on their missions with them. And then this time he ended up like telling her, left her behind as not to get her hopes up. And then yeah, so when they're in like the vault, Sophina sort of freezes them all, and that's how Holger and Ed get caught in the vault, and then they get, you know, shipped off to the big prison, which is, it's just like this. I you know, what could I really say? It's just this big, like, sort of, you know, like the Tower of Pisa, like that, but just straight. You know, it's kind of like that. So that's where they are, and sort of while he's telling the judges this about what's his whole backstory. You know, they're waiting for someone called Jonathan, which is another one of the judges that's been delayed. So that's kind of spread out through this, where he's like, oh, you know, is Jonathan here yet? So they sort of spread that through. And then, yeah, then he just sort of finishes that on, like, you know, I will spend my days trying to, like, right that wrong, like the fact that I left my daughter without a father. So it's kind of at that point, I'm like, oh, you're actually going to do something. So as I say, I thought, oh, we're just going to be doing random shit. It's not really going to be much story to it. I just thought I have, you know, random shit happening. But after that, I'm like, oh, you're actually going to be doing something, you know, worthwhile. So it was kind of at that point I thought maybe we might have something here then, something that's not shit. So that's kind of that, and then they Jonathan comes in, and it's this sort of bird person. It's like because they do a lot of practical effects in here, where it's just, you know, it's just a guy in a costume, but it's like this big bird. I don't really know. Again, I don't know what the fuck you call these things. It's just this big bird. So like as the judges are about to determine whether they're going to let him and Holger go, they grab onto it. So that's why they were waiting for Jonathan, so they could like sort of jump on him and fly him out this big drop out of a window. But yeah, it's like the judges were going to let him go anyway. So that, you know, that's kind of the joke in that part. But there's more jokes in here that are, you know, I actually found funny. There's a few that is just a chuckle. There's a few that, you know, that's really funny, that one. So that's how they start up the movie. They've had, like, that's, you know, the backstory of their main character. Again, I'm fine with it, just based on, like, the spirit in which they're doing it. If it was different circumstances, I'd go, you know, maybe sprinkle that through the movie. You know, it makes it a bit more, you know, you get a little something every now and again. That's a lot more natural to do it. But, you know, if it's in the spirit of just, well, that's how role-playing games go, you know, I'm fine with that part. So, yeah, they're now out of here, so that he's going to go off and find his daughter. They get to, like, his old house and find out she's got, because he left her with Forge, which is the con man guy that got away. So they already know he's more than likely still got her, looking after her, a type of guardian as such. So yeah, he finds his loot, because that was kind of, that was what the Harper's faction done, is they eavesdropped on mercenaries, so they, like, you know, pretended to be a bard. So that's kind of why he's got a loot. Yeah, so they then go and, like, sort of go into a, we're not even at that, but hold on a second. Yeah, they then go into, like, the little pub that's in that little town. They're just trying to, like, figure out, right, where could Forge have went. So they're looking for and trying to figure out where he's gone. I think the only thing I'd say about this is, like, so they're sitting in this tavern, and then Ed pulls, like off the notice board, like a little note thing of I believe it's called the High Sun Games. That's the games, like the upcoming games that are happening over in Neverwinter. And the bit he pulls off is, it has like Forge's face on it. It turns out he's now the Lord of Neverwinter. But yeah, I just found that, you know, it's lucky he picked that specific note, and it showed him, you know, thingy on there. So they've now figured out where he is. So that's kind of where we're going now, off to Neverwinter. So they get there, they go through the town, and it's, you know, everything's being prepped for these High Sun Games that come up in the last act, in the final act. That's when all that sort of stuff comes up. But yeah, they've made it there, so they're waiting to meet with Forge. He sees his daughter Kira, And she kind of goes, Dad, and then she sees Holger, and runs past him straight to her, which is for certain reasons that we are eventually going to find out. But yeah, you already from that, like, I guess Kira sees Holger as more of a mother, because she was, a baby when her mum was killed. She doesn't know nothing about her mum, so I guess she kind of looks at Holger as a sort of mother figure. So that sort of plays into the ending of it. So that's why I'm kind of highlighting it. So yeah, she takes him off to meet with Forge. She mentions the pendant that makes her invisible. I'm glad they've actually had that in there from the start, because if it was just one of these things that randomly comes up, it'd be a fucking issue. So Ed's like apologizing to her, saying, I took a risk that didn't pay off. Why do you look mad at me? Kira's just like, because you're acting like it wasn't your fault. Because I mean, the reason why he went in on it was, as we eventually come to it was more for him, like for him. It was something he was kind of thinking about his own needs, rather than his daughter's. He ended up going off to prison for taking these risks, leaving her without a dad. So there's certain reasons for why she's gonna hold certain things against him. And especially, it doesn't help that Forge has been turning her against her dad by lying to her. Because we now go into the conversation where they go down, sit with Forge and that Sophina witch. So yeah, Forge has been telling his daughter that the tablet that they were after was the tablet of riches and not the tablet of reawakening. So she's been told this entire time that the reason why he left was for money. That was all it was. So that's what. So he's kind of, as they say, poisoned her against him a little bit. Let me see. So that's kind of what's been going on there. And then Forge brings up, because they mention, oh, we got out of prison for good behavior, not the fact that they dived out a window and escaped. So he kind of uses that as, you from the moment you came in here, you've been lying. So that kind of stops Kira from trusting them, from believing them about the tablet of reawakening. So yeah, that's when they now gonna lead them out to get beheaded. They're just gonna kill them off. I don't think I'm missing anything here. So yeah, they get like Kira runs off, and then they get led down to get beheaded. So we just have a bit of a fight with Michelle Rodriguez. That's it. I completely forgot what her name was. And that, yeah, so they like break out of that. Manage to stop getting executed. And then, yeah, you get like a scene with Forge telling Kira that Ed and Holger are now gone. They took off with the tablet of riches. Yeah, that's the part we're at. So we're now about half an hour in. So we're gonna be doing it a bit quicker the day anyway, because I want to do another stream for Resident Evil 4. I'm just desperate, so we are gonna be pretty much blasting through it. So yeah, they're now leaving Neverwinter. They've got to figure out something to get Kira back. I did quite like this joke that was in there. We could shoot an arrow with a message into her room, and Ed's like, well, what if it hits her? And she's just like, oh, it's a risk we're gonna have to take. Killing my daughter with an arrow. No, it's not. I quite like that little joke. That made me laugh a bit. So yeah, they're now they need to get a team together, and you know they're gonna use forges like valuables and treasures as that's what they pay them with. So they're now gonna go off and find Simon, who he's apparently a terrible sorcerer, but it's the only sorcerer they know. So that's when we get introduced with him. We have, he's like a type. He's not a good sorcerer, but he's a sorcerer that kind of puts on shows and like that sort of stuff, where he's actually robbing them. They have like he's doing like little tricks like this smells like fresh cut grass. It's very like low down shit tricks. There's one trick he does where he kind of lights his finger. His finger has like a flame on it. So that's kind of, because one thing they are good at in this movie is setups and payoffs. They do that really well. So that's one of them there. They kind of set that up and then that pays off later. Just the flame from his finger. But yeah, he's robbing them until he sees like Ed and Holger, and then he drops it all, and then that's when all the villagers realize, oh shit, he's robbing us. I think the only thing I'd say about this is because he's stealing their rings and all that with like telekinesis or something. I'm like, they must realize that their rings are coming off their fingers. They must fucking realize that. Again, that's really the sort of, I guess, low down criticisms. There's a few silly things, but there's types of things that don't break anything. It's just more or less a sort of little issue there. I just wonder about how they're not realizing these rings are just being taken off them. So they realize like he's robbing them, and then he does some spell that turns the sort of room upside down, so everyone ends up on the ceiling, and then he does some other spell which makes him fly up into the fucking air, out of the roof, and he goes up quite high, and also I'm surprised that he actually survived the fall, where he like fell down onto a roof and then sort of rolled onto Ed and Holger's horses. There's definitely certain things there, they managed to be there on horses in order to capture him. To catch him on it. We get a bit more of, how Forge has come to power, and like the rumor is that the Red Witch has, I believe it's the lords, it's lords, not kings. So like the lord ended up sick, which they think she done, in order to put Forge there for her own certain reasons. They know that the tablet of reawakening is in a forge. They don't know what type of arcane magic is sort of hiding it away, or well, locking it away. So they've got to come up with a plan to get in there. And that's when it comes up where we probably need a druid. We could get a druid to get in there. Maybe because druids, like they can sort of change into different types of animals or things. So with that, they could have like sort of turn into a mouse to get in there. Figure things out. I think Holger mentions, she could turn into a deer, and that's kind of like another little setup for someone as well. Because like he responds to, deer will blend right in. So that's like another little setup just for later. It turns out Simon knows a druid called Doric. That they went out together. She found my lack of self-esteem unattractive. So it's, they kind of go that route where I was like, what are they doing with this? But it's more, it is there for a reason. You know, Simon sort of as a character is more doubts himself, doesn't have a lot of confidence, as he says, low self-esteem. And then he kind of, I guess it's a little bit of an arc. It's not a big arc, but it does kind of come up later on. So that's who they're off to find. And we've got our first little plot hole, I guess, where they come across, like they're traveling across the land, going for a wood, and they come across this woman being sentenced to death. And that you kind of then get a feel for how Forge run things. He's a bit of a authoritarian. They're sentencing this woman to death for speaking ill of him, so that kind of tells you what type of leader he is. And then you get this, like the horse turns into a big owl bear, which you probably heard about from the marketing. Yeah, it's just this big owl bear. I don't really know how to really describe it. It's a bear with an owl's face and owl feathers. But yeah, my only question here is, how the fuck did they know she would be here? They're going looking for Doric. They don't know, they've just happened to come across her. So that's an issue there. But yeah, I'm just glad it doesn't happen constantly. If it was a recurrent thing, then it would definitely fuck the film. But that's definitely a criticism I have there. That they're looking for Doric in this massive landscape, and they just happen to come across her just by coincidence. So that's a criticism I would have. And she ends up like agreeing to help them out. We find out that the part that Ed plays is that he's a planner. He plans. He plans everything. That's sort of his role. So she's like, so what use are you after you've made the plan? And he's like, well, if the plan fails, I make another plan. And they do put that into effect here. It's not just, oh, that's what I do, and it never comes up. They actually mention that's his role, and then he does actually do that. So they're now gonna go off to. Well, no, I think we go back to the Red Wizards first. Sophina. Yeah, she's talking to like these voices. There's like voices in the corner. I think it's something to do with Zaz Tam. I think that's like his name. But we get kind of more detail on him later on. So yeah, it's just stuff like I don't think I didn't write any of this down, but it's just basically she's up to something. Is probably the way to put it. And yeah, so then like Forge comes in and is like, oh, we got it's people to do with this High Sun Games that has only been brought back, and it's been brought back for a reason. Forge is getting something out of it, and the Red Witch is getting something out of it. And they're sort of showing, because I guess all the sort of rich people, like, because they like games that you can bet on, so people bring their valuables to use as like to bet with, to use as wagers. So that's why he has a vault that they're going to put everything in. It's like the vault is protected by an arcane seal of Morden Canaan. And like once we find that out, then you realize that Doric, that is a druid, has turned into like a little fly, and the Red Witch realizes this, so it ends up just in a big chase, her getting chased out of the castle and getting away, and then she like turns into a deer at the end. So it's like a little payoff for that. They kind of set that up with Holger mentioning, oh, she could turn into a deer. And that would get her through her. So they do pay that off a little bit there. So that's that part. So yeah, they then go into, there's certain things that I do have criticisms in this part. They go and sit down, like, because Doric has went and got this information that it's an arcane seal, so they know they know what is kind of going to be preventing them from getting into the vault to get back the tablet of reawakening. So yeah, we find out that there's a helmet of disjunction, which is a helmet that breaks all enchantments nearby. I don't quite know what I've got to say about that, really. It was one of those things like, I don't know. I don't know about that. It's just lucky that they have this, just this sort of item that they can just go and get, and then that will sort of break the enchantment. But I guess that's sort of, from what I know about D&D, in the sort of spirit of it. You have to go and get a certain thing that does this. So, we find out about that it went missing ages ago. Even if they were to find it, it's something that Simon the sorcerer would have to attune to. And, as we know so far, he's not a very good sorcerer. So he's kind of like, he kind of walks off and then like talks to Ed on their own. And he's like, there's no way I can do this. Ed is just kind of like, well, don't tell anyone to keep the morale of the group up. The only question I have about that was, surely, if you, I guess you don't really need the vault per se. Other than, he still wants the he wants his daughter, and he wants the tablet of reawakening. Because, I was going to say, surely if he wants his daughter, then, he would need Simon to be able to use this thing. But I suppose that's its separate thing, so that's fine. So then it turns out Holger knows where where the helmet is. So that part, I'm like, well, that's a bit convenient. It's a bit convenient that the person you're with knows about this. I don't know why she didn't mention it straight away as soon as it was mentioned. But there's the odd little thing like that where I'm like, that's a bit convenient that you know that. But as I say, overall doesn't break anything. So, but it's just one of those things. But yeah, it's to do with like Holger's tribe fought the cult of the dragon over it at the Evermoors. And this happened like over a century ago, so they're all dead. And then it turns out that's something that Simon can. He has a token that is able to sort of reawake the dead, like not for like just to ask them. You get like 5 questions and then they die. So there is certain things, but that's kind of lucky, I guess. But they're a bit choosy on what this sorcerer is able to do. But that's one thing that they can do, is go and ask these corpses that died on in this battle what happened with the helmet. But yeah, before we get to that, we have like Sophia and her friend, which is a Feyan, and she's like sending the Feyan off to hunt down Ed and Holger and all that. And then before he leaves, but before this guy goes off to fight, she gets like him to kill all the soldiers, sort of protecting them. As she says, for letting our team escape. So you kind of get your introduction to that. He comes up a bit later on. He's tracking them down. So then we get to the part where we get a bit of a cameo from Bradley Cooper. This is Holger's ex-husband, which is called Marleman. And he's like basically a halfling. He's like this little man. So that's the only part where I would question, oh, did you do that? Is that the emasculating men part? You have this little man and a big woman. That's the only like part of the movie where I'm like, yeah, maybe they did do it there, but as I said at the start of this, they don't do it with the leading like character with Ed. So she goes in there, collects her things. She collects up like this staff, and the reason why I highlight that now, because that's probably the biggest contrivance in the film, because it becomes very important. You know, I don't really think it's quite set up well because, you know, we kind of get to that part because we need to talk about that before we can actually go into it. So yeah, it's just this little tiny man that she, you know, used to love. She comes out of there and she's like, I'm going to show my tribe and Marleman that they were fools to let me go. And that, like, she's kind of a bit upset about, you know, going and seeing her ex-husband again. So that's when it comes up now and again where you just see, like, Ed and Holger just kind of lean on each other. Where he like cheers her up, like plays a song and all that. Which, you know, little bits like that, I think, you know, a nice touch. So then we go to to the corpses. This part, some of the jokes in here I quite liked. You know, they turn up and Holger's like, so many of my kin died, like, gave their lives in battle here. You know, I always hoped that I'd be buried on sacred ground like this. And then Ed just goes, does anyone have a shovel? So that got a bit of a chuckle out me. Because they've got to dig them up and then question them. Which they only have 5 questions. You know, I think you even have Dorrit, but that sounds a bit arbitrary, but that's just the way it works. You only get 5 questions. So like the first corpse that they wake up, they end up keep messing it up. Where, like, Ed is turning to them, asking a question, and the corpse thinks, you know, he's being asked a question. So they end up running out of that one. I quite like the way they do it to find out sort of what exactly happened in this battle where they died. And they kind of have to, you know, they talk to one corpse and ask them about the helmet. And then that corpse kind of goes, oh, and then I died. And then it kind of moves on through to different corpses, and we gradually find out about, you know, what happened in this battle. And I just think it's quite an interesting way to sort of, I guess, follow the trail of where this helmet went, like just by using the corpses. So I quite like that. They get to one that sort of has the helmet went off with a Feyan, like when this soldier sort of fell and like was about like on death's door. There was a Feyan that came and, you know, he promised that he would take the helmet and keep it safe. And this is Zenk Yendar. That's like the name of him. He's a Feyan that fled Saztam and then lived in exile. Apparently, it's very strange for a kind of Feyan, because the Feyans are they're kind of an assassin sort of faction, at least some of them, and they were the ones that like killed his wife. So he's not quite willing to go and do that. So that's kind of, so they've now found out where. Like, because the other 3 know who, they've heard of him before. They've heard about where he could possibly be, so they go and find him. And yeah, he's just this nice guy. He saves like a little cat person baby. You know, some of this shit I just have to describe it for what it is, because I don't know what you would actually call it. It's just this little cat person baby. And it's got its cat mum, and he like rescues it from out of the mouth of this like big fish. But it's another one of they sort of go practical with it, which I quite prefer, because, you know, CGI just gets fucking boring to me. So yeah, there is certain things where it's practical effects. So you kind of see what he's about. You know, he's a nice guy. He's, you know, helping people on the street. And yeah, he knows of them as well. Like, he knows of our sort of gang. I'm just trying to figure out, right. So yeah, they go into him and sort of tell them about their situation, that they need the helmet because they're doing it to stop Forge and the Red Witch. They want, you know, his daughter back. They want the riches. So they're kind of telling him that. I quite like the part in there where, Zenk says to Ed, you may have forsworn your oath, to the Harpers, which is, well, the oaths are, protecting people, not asking for anything in return. So I quite like that, because that kind of sets up like sort of the end as well. So they tell him what they need the helmet for. I quite like this joke. It kind of reminded me a bit of, like an Archer type of joke, where like Holger says, in other words, Forge is a real son of a bitch, and Zenk is like, so you blame his mother for corruption. So I quite like that one. She's just like, no, it's an expression. I quite like little jokes like that. It just kind of reminds me a bit of Archer. Kind of like jokes with expressions and that sort of stuff. So then we kind of get because I quite like the little sort of mini stories they give within the film. Like this is the history of what happened with this, again, part of history. And it's to do with the Red Wizards. That what possibly is what the Red Witch is gonna do. It comes up later on. It's like explained as one of the Red Wizards. Why did I keep calling her the Red Witch? She's not a fucking witch. Like a Red Wizard sort of staged an unholy coup and unleashed the Beckoning Death, a spell that will consume the souls of all who beheld it, bending them to his will, an army of the undead, to conquer the entire nation of Fae. Zaz-Tam will not be content until the whole of Theoden are his. So that's probably what the other Red Wizard is up to. So he's just questioning. So if she's teaming up with Forge, what do they stand to gain? We'll get to that at some point. He then gets Ed. I'll help you if you pledge that the riches you get from Forge, that you will, divide the wealth among the townspeople. They then find out that the helmet they have to get is in the Underdark, because as he says, I put it there because it's the last place anyone who values their life would go. So that's where they've got to go into. That's where we get to the dragon that was in the trailer. So we're just gonna jump to that part pretty much. So they go in there, and then this was the part where this is probably my favorite joke, but it just comes at the expense and causes a bit of a contrivance. We've talked about the staff. It becomes very important, very plot relevant. When they could have done it in a better way, a more natural way, rather than just, we can't do that now. But luckily we have this staff here. So that's probably the major sort of criticism I have in the entire film, is that they just so happen to have it. But I'll probably sort of go into it. So they go into the Underdark. They come to like a trap bridge. It's a bridge that you have to, there's like bits of stone. You have to stand on certain parts of it in order to get across. So you have Zenk explaining it. Just all this information you have to take in. Like, you have to, every odd tile, you must stand, and then you go over here, and sort of as he's going, it's like focusing on his face more and more. And it's just all this information coming out. Like, it's very, and then you just have Simon sort of just stand on the edge of the bridge, and then the whole fucking bridge comes down. I just thought that was really funny, for the fact that you're not really expecting it. You're not expecting it. Just how they're sort of putting the camera, like it's like really like serious stuff. Like, this is what we must do. Very specific, very mathematical, I guess. And then he just stands and it falls apart. So I quite like that joke. So now they can't cross the bridge. So that's where we have a bit of a problem. Because Holger's like, oh, well, I'll tie a string to my axe, throw it over there. We can do it that way. So she pulls out, like, Merlimin's stick. And then Simon's like, oh, where did you get that staff? She's like, oh, I stole it off a wizard for Merlimin. So that turns out to be a staff that is, essentially, it's portals. It can open, so it opens a portal across the bridge for where they need to go, so they can go in one portal, out the other. And I'm just like, so, it's just really, really fucking contrived. That you've just got rid of your sort of, I guess, only way you could get across the bridge. If it stopped here, it would be less of a problem. But it's more the fact that it does become plot relevant. At least for part of it. But yeah, I would have thought in this, you'd be better off just going, oh, well, we got to go up and fucking use that bridge now. Thanks, Simon. But no, it's just, oh, luckily you have this walking stick that is also a portal staff that then becomes plot relevant. But, it's, as I say, it's not a perfect film. It's pretty good. Pretty good. It's a decent watch. So, where do we go to now? Because we're almost an hour in, so we're about an hour and 10 minutes into the movie. We're almost an hour into this stream, so we're not going to be fucking here much longer. Because I'll be pretty much, getting through the whole thing, and then I'm going to have to finish. I'm going to have to go and get my dinner, so I can play my game. So, yeah, in other words, that joke, it's just come at the cost of, we've now got this thing, it's not done in a natural way. Right, hold on a second. I just got to... So, yeah, they go and retrieve the helmet, so they've got that now. And then you have the Feyans turn up that were sent to find them. Because before they went into the Underdark, there was a guy watching them. The Feyan guy was watching them. He's tracked them down. So then we have... So, like, Zenk kills them all, or seemingly kills them all. But then he says, oh, we can't... you can't kill them because they're already dead. You have a hard time doing that. So I'm just like, well, why the fuck did you fight them then? It's one of those things where he just wasted energy on fighting these things that you can't kill, and then, like, you would have been better just running away from them, because you have to run away from them anyway. Again, there's the odd stupid thing like that, just stupid decision. It's like, that was a bit pointless. So they're getting chased across, and then that's when the dragon appears. They sort of wake the dragon up. It's this big, pudgy sort of thing. And it chases them all across the, what would you call it, cavern? It's under a lake. That's where they are. That's where this Underdark thing is. So, yeah, they just get, and then, yeah, we kind of get a nice little payoff for someone else. They get chased into a corner, which has, I think because the dragon has been knocked in, there's all this salt water coming through. So that's when Ed realizes, oh, do that, Simon, do that, thing that you did with your finger, the flame. Because this is salt water, it's something to do with the salt water and the dragon's breath, plus, an open flame that causes a big explosion, which then opens it up, so then they can swim out the top of it. So I quite like that little payoff for it. That it's just it's just this little thing, and then it pays off later on for that. So they're now out of the lake. That's when Zenk sort of goes, right, this is where I leave you. So he goes off on his own. And then you then have Simon. He's now trying to attune to the helmet in order to use it. So it takes you into like a sort of, it takes you into, it like slows down time, and then it's his sort of grandfather, I guess, that turns up. And like his grandfather's like, you're a stain to your family name. Why should you be able to use magic like this? Why are you worthy? And he's like, oh, I can wear it because I believe in myself. He says, it kind of says it like a question. And that's what like his grandfather says. Is that a question? But yeah, it sort of rejects him. And then like the helmet just flings him across across the beach, so he's not quite able to like be able to use it. So yeah, while he's doing that, it becomes nighttime at that point. You have Ed so this is probably the setup that I really do like. I think it's the sort of best payoff we get in the movie. So let me kind of go through this a bit. So yeah, he dreams of like his wife. They're in bed, and there's like this blue. I guess I would call it a dragonfly, but I think they call it something else. But it's like this blue dragonfly that is flying about their room. He's trying to like capture it to get rid of. And she opens the window, and then it, flies out. And she says, stop trying to capture it. You just have to let it go. And I really think it really is one of my favorite parts of the movie. Just that setup, to like the payoff we get for it. I do think it's a really nice touch. But we will come back to that. So yeah, with Simon not being able to tune to this helmet, he tells everybody that Ed knew that he probably wouldn't be able to use this. So they're all pissed off, like, why wouldn't you, we risked our lives to get this, and you knew that he might not be able to use it. You've risked our lives for it, as such. So Simon, they're like originally like, right, we're leaving. So Ed has to try and convince them to help. He's going to like, Holger, do you want to go back to your sort of tribe? Do you want to prove to your tribe and all that you're like worthy of them? Says to Simon, like, do you want to go back? Just a failed sorcerer, so on and so forth. And they're like, well, why are we the failures but you're not? So that's when Ed goes, well, I'm the biggest failure of all. Do you want to know who really killed my wife? It was me. So that's when we get the sort of how everything went down. So when he captured, because at the start, in his like little backstory monologue we get at the start of the film, it now shows him like stealing a bit of the Red Wizard's gold, and he didn't realize that they marked their treasure, so that led them straight to his house, and then they killed his wife. He says, I didn't even have the luck to get there when it was happening. I failed the Harpers, I failed my family, so on and so forth. So he kind of blames himself for his wife being killed. He gives like, and yeah, it gives him more of a reason for why he is so desperate for this tablet of reawakening, because he wants to, it's his failure. He sees it as his failure, as his fault. So it makes more sense for why he would be so hell bent on not just, he doesn't just want his daughter back, but he also wants his wife back. He wants this tablet of reawakening, which I think just having it that way makes the ending a lot more impactful when you can see the reason for why he's so desperate to get his wife back, to revive her, to reawaken her. So I think that definitely adds a lot more to it. So then he kind of walks off and he's like, I'm going to go sit over here and figure out a plan. You can leave if you want. But after that, you know, they all sit down beside him as like, right, let's figure out a plan then. And that's when this staff comes up again. I'm like, you know, I really wish you just left it where it was. Because it is just one of those things. It's like, oh, you just happen to have this thing that helps you initiate a plan. I suppose, because it doesn't really have that much effect really on because they end up having to change plans anyway. I think, do they? Yeah, they end up having to change the plan. So which I think brings it down a bit, brings it down a little bit as far as being a major issue. Just like based on that, you know, they use it for an initial plan. That plan doesn't work out, so therefore they have. Well, no, it does a bit, doesn't it? Yeah, and I'm just remembering because I thought none of them go like it doesn't work out, but it does eventually work out, at least for one character. But it's again, it doesn't really affect much. It doesn't break anything. It's just more of, oh, that was lucky. That was convenient. Very convenient. You know, it was convenient for the fact that they were on the bridge. The bridge fell. They needed to figure out a way to get across, and they just so happen to have this staff that can portal them. So that's kind of what fucking set it all off. But you know, whatever. So then we kind of see their plan get put into effect. This is Ed's plan. They figure out, because all the rich, you know, all the wealthy people are going there with their valuables. So of course they're driving there with their wagons, horses, and that. So there'll be what they plan to do is we're gonna break into these. We're gonna sneak in to these. They're gonna portal themselves in. So they have like Simon lays under the no, Ed does. Ed lies underneath the sort of convoy, sort of hidden by leaves and all that, and then like sort of attaches a portal to the underneath of the wagon, and they're sort of up on the hill with another portal, and they open up the bottom of the wagon so they can get in there, and then like they can attach the portal to inside a painting and then put the painting over it so you can't see it. So that gets put into the vault, and then they can get into the vault and steal the tablet of a reawakening, and all the treasures and sorts. So that's kind of what I probably over-explained it there, but that's the gist of it, I guess. So yeah, that ends up not working out originally, because they then go and check into a little inn in the city. They go to sort of open the portal to get ready to dive in there, get all the stuff. But unluckily, very inconvenient this. They stack the painting, and the painting falls flat on its face, so they can now not get through it. So at that point, you'd maybe have a bit of forgiveness for it. Right, that didn't work out. But then it also leads to eventually Doric because they go off and enact Plan C, which is they're just gonna sort of they're gonna use the helmet. They're gonna go back to the helmet plan. So they sort of go off and do that, where she tries to get in there. It leads to her getting into the sort of like because Forge is actually stealing all these valuables. He's not putting it in his vault. He is putting it in his sort of cellar. So that's where they put the painting. So that lets her figure out where the stuff is. So that's where it becomes a bit more of a problem again. You've gotten that information based off that. But still, it doesn't really break. It's just contrived. Quite contrived. It's not enough to go bad film. It's just one of those things. It's like, every film, I suppose, has something, don't they? But there's still, again, better ways to do it that would make it even better, I think. Right. So, I'm just trying to see. Yeah, so Ed is trying to convince Simon that, you can attune to this helmet. I believe in you. You're at your best when you believe you're at the weakest. That's what they go for there. Again, it's a lot to do with why he isn't a good sorcerer. Comes down to his confidence. He just doesn't have a lot of confidence in himself. That's why he's always at his best when he's like, oh shit, I'm in danger. And it just, he becomes a lot better. So yeah, they've now got to sneak into this place. I really do like the way they do it. It's really fucking funny. So obviously Simon, being a sorcerer, he sort of has. So you have Ed walking up as a bard, playing his why do I always forget the name? Playing his lute. That's it. Playing his lute, singing a song, like distracting the guards. And yeah, it's like I guess it's like a visual sort of magic. It's an illusion. It's an illusion of Ed doing this. So it's not actually happening. So yeah, then so they're like sneaking behind the guards as this is happening, and Simon is sort of controlling it until he gets his like foot stuck in the stuck in a little gap in the floor. So then because he's losing focus, the sort of illusion they have going is sort of get stuck on repeat. Like a broken record. It's just like whatever he's singing, just getting repeated and repeated and repeated, and then over time his sort of face just fucking blows out, and then he sort of just goes fucking down like that. So yeah, I thought that one was funny. But yeah, so that's when the guards realize, oh shit, they're breaking in here. So we have a big Holger's fighting people. Simon goes to the vault. He puts the helmet on, and then his grandfather comes back, and he's like, "Oh, you can't do this to me now. Our lives are in danger. You've got to let me do this." And that's when his grandfather's saying, "You're a stain to your family name," and then, Simon's just like, "I haven't got time," and then punches him. And then when the grandfather comes up, it's then Simon himself. So that's kind of what they're going for with that is, he's been getting in the way of himself. It's not really that he's a shit sorcerer. It's just he's been getting in the way of himself. Lack of confidence. So that's kind of what they go for in that, I guess. So he gets into the vault and they realize, oh shit, there's nothing here. But that's when Doric gets into the cellar and she's like, oh, all the valuables are down here. I'm in. But they they don't have the tablet yet. All of them get caught. Ed is about to get caught. He sees his daughter. That turns out to be his. It turns out to be the Red Witch, the Red Wizard. I don't know why I keep saying witch because she's not a witch. She's a Red Wizard. So Ed thinks he's talking to his daughter. He's saying to her, I know you think I'm a bad father. I am a bad father, and I did leave you, and I wasn't trying to bring your mum back, but my wife back. Which, if you knew her, if you had the chance to understand, to love her, you would understand. If you come with me, you can have that chance. And then she starts laughing, and the Red Wizard appears. The Red Wizard woman, just to make it more make sure you actually know what I'm on about here. So he's now. She's caught him. So Forge comes in. He's like, I don't want to watch you die. So I'm going to leave. And then Ed starts saying, at least if you're going to kill us, let us die with dignity. Put us in the games, the games that are about to begin. So the Red Witch Sophian, she says to him, she says, "Oh, fine, let him and his friends fight in the arena. They deserve that." There's reasons for why. I guess I would probably go for she wants as many people as she can. She's going to enact a certain thing that I mentioned earlier about the Red Wizard coup. So they're going to fight. So yeah, then we get the games, which I'll pretty much just run through it. They put little magic dampeners on Simon and Doric. That's one thing worth mentioning. But yeah, it's just like this big maze. This big maze that comes up and down, changes. There's these sort of black coloured panthers with like tentacle things. Very weird looking. Again, I don't know the majority of this stuff. I don't know what it is. So yeah, that's kind of what happens. There's little chests round about that they have to find that have weapons in them in order to use against the monsters. But yeah, the way these games work is, I really should fucking bring water because I've just got a really dry throat. I've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes. I fucking need a drink, man. So yeah, well that's kind of the games. They managed to break out. There's like this liquid, sort of solid liquid stuff that you have a guy run into and get stuck in it. She sort of falls in just with her arm. It's very lucky that it's her arm that they put the dampener on her wrist, because when she pulls it out, the dampener comes off. So yeah, that's kind of a thing I'm realizing now. That yeah, that's a little fucking little convenient there. So yeah, as they're going around these games, they realize, oh shit, this is just going to keep going on and on until we're all dead. So Doric comes up with a plan. Oh, I've got an idea. So they dive into that goo stuff, and because the maze changes and goes up and down, so that goes down, and then they manage to sort of escape the pit. So they can now chase down Forge, who is now leaving with all the wealthy people's valuables and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much. So yeah, they chase him down. We're not far up. We've only got another 15 minutes of this film to go. So yeah, we've been doing good for time. So yeah, they chase him down. They manage to get ahead of him. So they're in his boat waiting for him as a sort of ambush. So like, yeah, it's kind of here where it becomes more apparent that all Forge cares about is money, is gold, just riches. That's what his only motivation is. He just fucking loves the gold. He loves money. He loves a bit of money. So yeah, he ends up holding Kira at knife point, just like in order to, let them go, to let him go off, and then you kind of have a little payoff from earlier, because Holga she loves potatoes. In the cell that she's in, when we first get introduced to her, she's eating potatoes. She just really, really loves potatoes. So, yeah, she then sees, oh, there's potatoes down there, and then she just throws a potato at his fucking face and kind of knocks him off balance. They grab Kira, and then Simon makes a big wave sort of come over Forge, and then they manage to escape. Escape with all the wealth, everything like that, and with Kira. But yeah, it's now that Kira realizes that her dad was telling the truth, that what he was after was the reawakening tablet to bring back his wife. So she's kind of like, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. It's just like, you don't need to apologize. I love you, and nothing will ever get in the way of that again. And then you have the sort of black. I guess a way to describe it is, I always find it funny when you're trying to describe something without visuals, because you just have to come up with random shit. I guess it's like black, cloudy tentacle fucking things that come out of the sky. And yeah, so this is like the Red Wizard enacting the sort of thing to basically to make the Army of Dead, to create the Army of Dead. They already have it in a certain part of the world that they've took a load of people over, so that they're trying to extend its reach. So that's what she's currently up to. So then Ed's like, well, oh shit, and so they then go back and think, right, we'll help everybody out. He also holds his promise of sharing the wealth with the townspeople, with the people of, what did I say? Neverwinter. So yeah, the only thing I would say about that, because they've got the portal thing, they portal the bottom of the boat, like where the riches are, and they put a portal on an air balloon, and I'm just like, all that golden stuff falling out the sky onto people. I'm like, that's probably killing some people, isn't it? That's probably knocking someone out. I mean, something falling from a height like that, you're gonna get fucking seriously hurt with it. That's the only thing I'd say about that. But yeah, the sort of going back to save the people, sort of, again, when it was mentioned by Zenk Udar, something like that. That's, you may have forsworn your oath, but your oath hasn't forsworn you. So I thought that was another little payoff there as well. So yeah, now we can kind of get to the final fight, and we'll be pretty much done. They start fighting first like they show the air balloon sort of shedding all this gold and silver and whatever. So like that's essentially a way to get the townspeople as far away as possible from the big arena they're in, so they won't be sort of overtaken by the beckoning death. This eventually leads to them fighting the Red Witch. There's stuff going on like this sort of stone dragon and an owl bear. Doric turns into an owl bear again, starts fighting it. Her and Simon are sort of going at each other. There's like these fists fighting. A lot of the stuff I'll skip because it's certain stuff you kind of need to watch to see. Eventually Doric makes the Red Wizard lose focus by because she uses I'm completely forgetting the word of it now. What is it called? I can't think of it, but anyway, she makes the Red Witch lose focus, knocks her off a little perch. And then the Red Witch gets fucking mad, and then she uses that freeze time sort of spell that we've seen her do in the little backstory at the start of the movie. So she does that, and then because when they came back with Kira, they had her use her pendant that makes her go invisible. Again, they've had that from the very start of the film, so that's the only. I'm glad that it didn't just randomly come up. As the red, she freezes them up and then walks over to Ed, basically giving her villain speech. I put up with Forge. I'm not letting you get in the way of this. And then, yeah, it turns out that Simon has countered her, what does he call it, time stop. So then Kira has slipped on the little magic dampener bracelet. So that's how they've managed to stop her. They did rip something off from the first Avengers film, where they have the owl bear smash the Red Witch into the ground over and over and over. I just thought, you fucking ripped that off, didn't you? But whatever. So then, it turns out that Holga she's been stabbed by a red wizard's blade, which means you can't help them. Essentially, there's nothing you can do to save them, because just if you get, it's the same knife. It's the same kind of knife that Ed's wife got stabbed by. So there's nothing they can do. So you've got Kira. She's kind of crying like, I need you. Again, it's as I highlighted that because she's kind of been raised by Holga, more or less. She kind of sees Holga as her sort of mother. So that's why she's really upset about it. Which eventually she does die, and then it shows flashbacks of them of her growing up with Holga. Although, I'm not really sort of keen on the whole flashback stuff. I'm like, a lot of that should have already been shown. But then again, they've had certain elements sort of littered about the entire movie to show how she kind of sees Holga. So she's died, and then that's where Ed kind of looks. He looks at the tablet of reawakening that he was going to use to revive his wife. And again, this is something you can only use it the one time. There's no using it again. And then, yeah, Ed sees. So it's the payoff that I really like that they had set up with the little flashback of the little flashback of Ed and his wife, to do with the dragonfly, where essentially this is him giving up what because it's him that wants his wife back. It's more about him than it is about his daughter, because his daughter doesn't know her, like never met her, so he kind of gives that up in order to save someone who Kira sees as a mother, which again I think is really fucking really good. And that's just so you have like the dragonfly that lands on him, and it's just essentially it's just let it go, just let your wife is gone. Just let it go. You can do something that would help someone, here and now. You sort of sacrificing for your kids, I guess, is the simple way to put it. So yeah, I really like that, and that kind of ends us. They just kind of sit and watch. There's like fireworks going on, because I guess it's to do with the games. Or they've defeated, the Red Witch. So, yeah, they kind of have a sit-down sort of it's very similar to Avengers, I guess, where once they've done their mission, they chill out. And, yeah, I guess that they're going to be, a type of family. It's similar to, it's as I say, that it does share similarities with Guardians of the Galaxy in the sense that it's, it's these people coming together. They become a family, and I imagine, I guess, depending on how it does at the box office, we could probably see a sequel from how it's going so far. But then again, it hasn't really updated properly. But yeah, I wouldn't mind coming back for another one. There's a lot of things they can do. They're sort of existing in a world where there's loads of different things they can do. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get another one after that. But that is the entire movie. We did it. We did it in an hour and a half, and I need a fucking drink because my mouth is so dry. You end up, I mention it every stream, so I'm not even gonna fucking bother. But yeah, just dry mouth. That's what I got. But that's the entire film. I think pretty good. Pretty good. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was definitely shocked, surprised that we sort of ended up with what we got. Something pretty good with some nice setups and payoffs. Likeable characters. Had a bit of heart to it. Just, again, some nice stuff in there, some good stuff in there that would make me be interested in seeing a sequel. But it's as I say, it's really a kind of movie that is, nice Sunday afternoon movie to watch. That's kind of the type of movie it is. It's not, it's not one of those things. How could I really put it? It probably sounds like I'm fucking putting the film down by saying, oh, it's a Sunday afternoon type of film. But that's just kind of how it comes across. It's not, it was compared to Lord of the Rings. It's not, it doesn't have that there. It's nothing like Lord of the Rings. But that's how you've had the critics and that describe it. Again, the only part I agree with is that it's very similar to Guardians of the Galaxy in a sense. But yeah, again, I wouldn't mind seeing these characters again to see what other adventures they do. But yeah, I suppose that's going to depend on how well it does at the old box office, as it goes most days. But I really think they've fucked this film over by coming out and saying we emasculate our leading men, and then we don't actually in the movie. So it's like you've just turned a whole bunch of people off for no reason at all. No reason at all. But yeah, if you're still here, I'd recommend it. It's not a high recommend. It's just, if you want something to watch, it's worth a watch. It's got some good stuff in there. This again, we went over all the issues, and it could have been fucking worse. Let's just say that. After having, I suppose the most recent films I've done is Quantumania and Shazam 2. Yeah, fucking way better than those two films. It actually is a story. It has something there. It has characters there. Where a lot of what we're talking about before that, I think fucking got any of that. And yeah, I'm not trying to make it sound like, because some people will say, you just, it's because there's so much shit. This one just, I wouldn't say that either. I wouldn't say it's one of those things where it's like, but it's just because it's mixed, it's surrounded by shit. I do think it's a good movie on its own terms. And on that note, I will probably finish off there because I'm gonna now. I want to get my dinner, and then I want to stream some more Resident Evil 4. But it's probably going to be a good couple of hours before I get to that. I'm only like 3 hours into that game, and I'm already like, I think this is going to end up being my favorite game of all time. It's a really fucking fun game. So I will be back for that. Next week, we have the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and I'm going to put a big question mark to doing that one. It's going to depend on two things. Either if it's really good, then yeah, I'll probably be talking about it. If it's really shit, then yeah, I'll probably be talking about it. But if it's just something where, nah, if it's something like that, it's not really, I haven't got a lot to say about it, then I probably won't be covering it. If that's the case, then the next one will be Resident Evil 4 Remake. I'm going to use this podcast. I want to sort of break that down, not the story, but more just talk about everything in the game. But yeah, other than that, again, just a question mark on the Super Mario movie, which hopefully that's a good one. Hopefully that may be a bit of a sign of where Hollywood may be going. It may be going into more, I guess, video game adaptation. I mean, even just with the Nintendo stuff, there's a lot that they could do. So I think if it's really good, maybe there'll be something. How's it going, Justin? It's been a while. I'm just about to finish and all. But yeah, what more can I say? That is the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Pretty good movie. They just ruined it with the marketing, really. So it'd be surprising how well, if it does relatively well. We will have to see on that front, but I'm going to finish off there anyway because I want to get a drink, get my dinner, and I want to start playing Resident Evil 4 Remake. So I'll be back for that in about, I guess, 2 hours or something. But yes, I will see you on the next one, which hopefully should be the Super Mario Bros movie. We shall